Charles D. You know, finishing is about as confusing as a woodpecker landing on a steel pole. And rightfully so. It's just one of those things that there's so much products out there and so much information that you don't really know. And, you know, a lot of them tell you that, you know, take me and smear me on and I'm going to be beautiful. Well, it doesn't work that way. And one of the most confusing things is the difference between stains and dyes. There are inherently three basic stains or dyes. There's a water base, you have an oil base, which is typically linseed oil, and you have alcohol base, and that's predominantly in the dyes. Now there are some lacquer-based stains out there, but for the most part, the first three are the ones you're going to be encountering. The labels on most of the ones are really misleading. They tell you they're one thing, but in reality, there's something else. And we're going to look at that. A dye is where the colorant is absorbed into the liquid that's transferring. It never goes out of suspension. What am I talking about? You don't have to stir it. It's always mixed. It's like food coloring. Okay, in water. It dissolves into the water, becomes a part of it, and there you go. Stains, on the other hand, are where a pigment is actually laid down on a surface. And the medium, whether it be water, whether it be alcohol, or whether it be oil, is what is the liquid that's transferring the pigment to the material. Now, the problem here is, as I said, is that they don't really clarify that on the can, and it's very, very important. And we're going to look at that in a little while. But the first thing we're going to look at is how do you know the difference? I'm going to show you. This is a water-based dye. If I stir it, if you look on the bottom, I've got that, the dark you see is just the bottom where it's gathering. But my stick is colored all the way up and down. There's no deviation in the color. Here is an alcohol-based dye. Stick it in. Same thing. This is a dye. It's colored all the way through. Now I'm going to come over here. This says this is an oil-based stain. Stain. Not dye. But in reality, it is a dye. It's coloring the stick all the way top to bottom. And there's nothing, there's no pigment in the bottom. This is a dye. Let's check these others. Yep, you're right. It's a dye. Notice the difference? Let's crunch around the bottom a little bit. Can you see the pigment on the bottom? This is actually an oil-based stain. It has oil and it has the pigments in the bottom, and it's necessary for you to stir it to bring the pigment into solution. Mix it together. This is an oil-based stain. And you're going to know that because when you first stick your stick in it, the top of it's going to be clear. Just the oil, and you're going to see the pigment in the bottom. That is a stain. This is a stain, no doubt. When I stir it, my pigments come into solution. Now, I realize one color is darker than the other, but here's the other thing I want you to pay attention to. Okay? Is notice how one is coloring much more intense than the other. This simply has to do with the quality of the pigment you use. And concentration. Alright? This is a gel stain, and it's obviously a gel stain. Gel stains are nice and thick, and they also retain the color throughout. It's always a good idea to stir them a little bit. That's what they are. Water bases stains. This is a stain. And so I have to stir it. But water-based stains, from my experience, tend to be a little bit more intense, and they also, well, they do a real good job. The other nice thing about water-based stains, from my perspective, is that if I put on one coat and let it dry, and then I've got something I need to do, I can come back and actually stain it again, and I'll get a much more intense effect. And the reason for that is that the water bases don't seal the wood as much as an oil base. Oil's a penetrating thing. It soaks